Commander Sarah stared at the approaching anomaly through the reinforced viewport of the Pathfinder. The wormhole pulsed with impossible colors, a rippling tear in the fabric of space-time that shouldn't exist this close to Earth's orbit. The mission had been simple: investigate the strange gravitational readings detected by NASA's Deep Space Monitoring Network. No one had expected to find a fully formed Einstein-Rosen bridge. "Houston, are you receiving these readings?" Sarah asked, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. Static answered her. "Houston, do you copy?" More static. The wormhole's electromagnetic interference was stronger than predicted. Sarah glanced at her instrument panel, where warning lights flashed in angry red patterns. The Pathfinder was being pulled toward the anomaly, the ship's thrusters straining ineffectually against the growing gravitational field. "Computer, calculate escape trajectory," Sarah commanded, her fingers flying across the control panel. Insufficient thrust available to achieve escape velocity. The ship's AI responded tonelessly. Gravitational pull exceeding engine capacity by factor of 2.7 and increasing. Sarah swallowed hard. She had trained for emergencies, but nothing like this. "Computer, engage emergency protocol Omega. Transmit all data back to mission control." Transmission initiated, the AI confirmed. "Warning, data packet integrity cannot be guaranteed due to electromagnetic interference." The Pathfinder shuddered as it crossed the event horizon of the wormhole. Sarah's last thought before consciousness slipped away was of her daughter, Emma, waiting for her back on Earth. "I'm sorry. I promised I'd come back." Pain greeted Sarah as consciousness returned. Every nerve ending in her body screamed in protest as she forced her eyes open. The emergency lights of the Pathfinder bathed the cockpit in a dim red glow. Outside the viewport, stars wheeled in unfamiliar patterns. "Computer, status report," she croaked, her throat parched. "Systems functioning at 47% capacity," the AI replied. "Hull integrity compromised but stable. Life support operational for approximately 72 hours at current consumption rates. Location unknown. Stellar cartography database unable to match visible constellations to known patterns." Sarah's training kicked in. First priority, survival. Second, determine location. Third, establish communication. "Computer, run full diagnostic on communications array." Communications array functioning within normal parameters. No response to standard hailing frequencies. That wasn't right. Even if she had somehow traveled to the outer reaches of the solar system, she should still be able to pick up something from Earth. "Computer, how long was I unconscious?" Based on ship's chronometer, 37 hours, 14 minutes, and 22 seconds have elapsed since passage through the anomaly. A day and a half. Not enough time to have drifted that far, even if the wormhole had somehow spat her out in the Kuiper Belt. "Computer, scan for nearest planetary bodies." Scanning. A pause. Planetary body detected at distance of approximately 0.8 astronomical units. Spectral analysis indicates Earth-like composition. Earth-like? Computer, is it Earth? Insufficient data for positive identification at current distance. Atmospheric composition consistent with Earth parameters. Recommend closer approach for definitive analysis. Sarah adjusted her restraints and prepared to bring the Pathfinder back to life. "Computer, plot intercept course with minimum power expenditure." Course plotted. Estimated arrival in 17 hours, 32 minutes at current acceleration parameters. As the Pathfinder limped toward the distant blue-green world, Sarah tried to make sense of what had happened. The wormhole should have torn her ship apart. Instead, it had transported her. Somewhere. The stars were wrong, which meant either she had traveled an immense distance through space, or... "Computer, what's the date according to ship's chronometer?" Ship's chronometer indicates date is April 17th, 2043. Same year, same month, just a couple of days after she'd encountered the wormhole. So if she hadn't traveled through time, and the stars were wrong, then the only explanation was that she had traveled through space. Potentially a very, very long way through space. The next 17 hours passed in a blur of system checks, minor repairs, and fitful sleep. As the Pathfinder approached the planet, Sarah's suspicions were confirmed. It was Earth. The continents matched, though there were differences in the coastlines that she couldn't explain. What troubled her more were the structures she observed as she entered the upper atmosphere. Massive, geometrically perfect constructions that glittered like black glass under the sun, stretching for what appeared to be New York all the way to Chicago. Computer, those structures aren't in any of our databases, are they? Negative. No matching architectural patterns in database. Sarah felt cold dread settling in her stomach. Any response to our hails? Negative. However, sensors are detecting active scanning of our vessel. Something had found her. Something that wasn't NASA. Computer, maintain course, but be prepared for evasive maneuvers. Sarah strapped herself in more securely. And keep broadcasting the first contact protocol message. The Pathfinder descended through clouds that seemed unnaturally purple-tinged. As she broke through the cloud cover, Sarah gasped. The landscape below was simultaneously familiar and alien. The basic geography was right. She recognized the eastern seaboard of the United States, but everything else was wrong. The cities were transformed, dominated by those strange black structures that seemed to pulse with internal light. And moving between them were things. Flying craft that moved with impossible grace, defying all principles of aerodynamics she knew. Computer are those. Aircraft, unable to classify observed objects using standard parameters. Propulsion method unknown. Material composition scan inconclusive. A warning klaxon blared through the cockpit. Warning, unidentified energy signature detected. Vector indicates targeting of this vessel. Sarah's hands flew over the controls. Evasive pattern Delta. The Pathfinder banked hard, narrowly avoiding a beam of coruscating purple energy that sliced through the air where she had been moments before. Computer, get me out of here. Emergency landing protocols. Calculating emergency landing trajectory. Warning, multiple targeting signatures detected. The Pathfinder shuddered as a glancing blow struck its port side. Systems failed across the board as Sarah fought to maintain control. The ground rushed up to meet her, patchwork of transformed landscape and the occasional recognizable feature. In the distance, she could see what might have been the ruins of Washington, D.C., the Washington Monument, a broken stub against the horizon. Impact was inevitable. Sarah gritted her teeth and braced herself as the Pathfinder plowed into a dense forest. The reinforced hull tearing through trees before skidding to a halt in a small clearing. The last thing she saw before blackness claimed her was a status report flashing on the cracked display screen. Life support critical. Emergency power only. She's waking up. The voice was human, male, with an accent Sarah couldn't quite place. She forced her eyes open to find herself lying on a rough cot in what appeared to be an underground bunker. Dim LED lights illuminated a space crowded with salvaged equipment, stored supplies, and a small group of people watching her with expressions ranging from curiosity to suspicion. "Where am I?" Sarah managed, her voice a rasp. A man stepped forward, mid-40s, with a scarred face and the hard eyes of someone who had seen too much. "About 50 miles west of what used to be Baltimore. The better question is, who are you and where did you come from? Because that ship of yours looks an awful lot like NASA, and NASA hasn't existed for 5 years." Sarah struggled to sit up. 5 years? What are you talking about? "I'm Commander Sarah of the Pathfinder mission. I left Earth 3 weeks ago." The group exchanged glances. A woman with close-cropped gray hair spoke next. "What year do you think it is, Commander?" 2043. April 17th, according to my ship's chronometer. The scar man laughed, a harsh sound without humor. "Well, your chronometer's right about the date, but I'm afraid you are off by about 10 years on the year." Sarah felt the blood drain from her face. "That's not possible. It's 2053, the woman said gently. "And Earth isn't what you remember. The Vrex arrived 8 years ago." Another man said, this one younger, maybe in his 20s. "They came through what we thought was just another wormhole research experiment. Turns out, we were accidentally knocking on their door, and they decided to answer." Sarah's mind reeled. 8 years ago? That would be 2045, the scarred man confirmed. 2 years after you apparently left. The first wormhole tests were just starting to show promise then. "My name is Marcus," the scarred man continued. "This is Dr. Eleanor Wright." He nodded toward the gray-haired woman. "And the kid is Eli. We are part of the resistance." one of the last organized human groups fighting back against the Vrex occupation. Vrex? The aliens? Sarah asked. Eleanor nodded. They call themselves the Vrex Imperium, technologically advanced beyond anything we could imagine. They walked through our defenses like they weren't even there. The major cities fell within days. But you survived, Sarah stated. Some of us, Marcus replied grimly. About 30% of the human population remains. Most are processing labor in the Vrex arcologies, those black structures you probably saw. The rest are either collaborators or resistance, like us. Sarah tried to process this information. 10 years. She had somehow traveled 10 years into the future to find Earth conquered by an alien species that had used the very wormhole technology she had been testing. The implications were staggering. My family, she whispered. My daughter, Emma. She would be 17 now. The silence that greeted her question was answer enough. We can check the databases we have hacked, Eli offered after a moment. If she's in a processing center, there might be a record. Later, Marcus cut in. Right now, we need to figure out what to do with the commander here. Her ship crashed less than 20 miles from a Vrex outpost. They will be combing the area already. Why did you save me? Sarah asked. Because that ship of yours is the first human spacecraft we have seen in years, Eleanor explained. The Vrex grounded everything after the invasion, and you were broadcasting old NASA protocols. We hope you might be from one of the off-world colonies. Off-world colonies? Mars, Eli said with a hint of excitement. There were rumors that some of the Mars missions managed to establish a permanent base before the Vrex arrived. That they have been building, preparing for what? Sarah asked. To take back Earth, Marcus stated flatly. But it's just a rumor, a hope people cling to. The Vrex control everything from low Earth orbit outward. If there were humans on Mars, the Vrex would have found them by now. Sarah's mind raced. If she had somehow traveled through time as well as space, then perhaps. My mission, she said suddenly. I was investigating a wormhole anomaly when I was pulled through. The Pathfinder was transmitting data back to mission control before I lost consciousness. Eleanor leaned forward, suddenly intent. What kind of data? Everything. Gravitational readings, electromagnetic spectra, spatial coordinates. It was the first natural wormhole ever encountered in our solar system. Natural? Marcus frowned. The Vrex wormhole technology isn't natural. They generate the wormholes artificially, which means, Eleanor said slowly, that the wormhole Commander Sarah encountered might not have been Vrex in origin at all. And if NASA received that data before the invasion, Eli added, his voice rising with excitement, then maybe the Mars colony has it too. Maybe they have been studying it all this time. Studying what? Sarah asked, confused. A way home, Eleanor said simply. A natural wormhole that might lead somewhere the Vrex haven't reached yet. Somewhere humanity could escape to if all else fails. Marcus shook his head. You are getting ahead of yourselves. Even if this natural wormhole still exists, and even if the Mars colony exists and has the data, how would we let them know? The Vrex monitor all transmissions. My ship, Sarah suggested. The Pathfinder has a specialized communications array designed to penetrate electromagnetic interference. If we could repair it, the Vrex will have found your ship by now, Marcus interrupted. Maybe not, Eli countered. We diverted their search drones with false heat signatures, and we managed to activate the ship's cloaking tarp before we extracted the commander. It won't fool them for long, Marcus warned. It doesn't need to, Sarah said, determination hardening within her. I just need enough time to retrieve the data core and the communications array. If this Mars colony exists, and if they have been studying the wormhole data, then maybe they have figured out something we can use against the Vrex. Eleanor studied her thoughtfully. You have been gone 10 years, Commander. You have missed the invasion, the resistance, everything. Why are you so quick to join our fight? Sarah met her gaze steadily. Because I have a 17-year-old daughter somewhere out there. And because I made a promise before I left that I'd come back. The next day found Sarah, Marcus, and Eli making their way through dense forest toward the Pathfinder's crash site. They moved carefully, using the tree cover to avoid the Vrex drones that occasionally hummed overhead. Tell me about these Vrex, Sarah whispered as they paused behind a fallen log. What exactly are we dealing with? Marcus peered through a pair of salvaged binoculars. Technologically, they're centuries beyond us. Energy weapons, gravity manipulation, faster than light travel. Biologically, they are different. Imagine something like a mantis crossed with an octopus, standing about 7 feet tall. They are telepathic too, Eli added. At least with each other. They can sense humans, but they can't read our minds. Small mercies, Marcus muttered. Their society is hierarchical. The ones we see on Earth are mostly drones and warriors. The higher castes stay on their ships in orbit. What do they want with Earth? Sarah asked. Resources, mainly, Marcus replied. They're stripping the planet of rare metals and minerals. And they're using humans as labor. Some kind of religious belief system of theirs prohibits them from certain types of manual work. They see intelligence as sacred, Eli explained. The more intelligent a species, the more it should devote itself to higher pursuits. Using a brain capable of mathematics to dig in the dirt is blasphemy to them. So they enslave others to do it instead, Sarah said flatly. Pretty much, Marcus confirmed. They're not needlessly cruel. They feed and house their human workers. But they have no concept of freedom as we understand it. In their society, your place is determined at birth by your caste. The idea that beings might choose their own path is alien to them. They fell silent as another drone passed overhead. This one was larger than the others, with multiple scanning arrays visible on its underside. Search drone, Marcus whispered. They're getting serious. When it had passed, they continued their cautious approach. As they crested a small rise, Sarah caught her first glimpse of the Pathfinder in daylight. The ship had carved a path through the forest before coming to rest in a small clearing. The cloaking tarp, a marvel of nanotechnology that had been experimental when she left, covered most of the vessel, rendering it virtually invisible unless you knew exactly what to look for. No Vrex yet, Eli reported, scanning the area through thermal goggles. But there's a lot of wildlife activity around the ship. The crash must have disrupted a local herd of deer. Let's move, Marcus ordered. In and out in 15 minutes. They made their way down to the clearing, Sarah fighting back the emotion at seeing her ship again, her last tangible connection to the world she had left behind. The Pathfinder was heavily damaged. The port side was crumpled where the energy weapon had struck it, and the hull was breached in several places from the crash landing. Eli went to work on the cloaking tarp, detaching it carefully while Marcus stood watch. Sarah climbed through the emergency hatch into the cockpit. The interior was dark, illuminated only by the occasional flicker of emergency power cycling through damaged systems. Computer status report, she tried. Not expecting a response to her surprise, the main display flickered weakly to life. Emergency power at 12% capacity. The AI responded, its voice distorted. Critical systems, non-functional. Data core integrity at 89%. Sarah felt a surge of hope. Computer, begin download of all mission data to portable storage device. She plugged in a small drive that Eleanor had given her, designed to interface with NASA technology. Download initiated. Estimated completion time, 7 minutes. Too long. Marcus hissed from outside. We need to be gone in 5. Computer, prioritize wormhole data and spatial coordinates, Sarah commanded. Reprioritizing. Estimated completion time. For minutes, 30 seconds. While the data downloaded, Sarah turned her attention to the communications array. The primary array was mounted externally and likely destroyed in the crash, but the Pathfinder had been equipped with a backup system. Smaller and less powerful, but potentially still functional. She located the access panel beneath the co-pilot's seat and pried it open. The backup array was intact, a compact module about the size of a hardback book. Sarah carefully disconnected it from the ship's systems and tucked it into her backpack. Data download complete, the computer announced. Sarah removed the drive. Computer, initiate complete memory wipe of all systems. Authorization, Chen Alpha Tango 97. Memory wipe initiated. Warning, this action is irreversible. I know, Sarah whispered, patting the console gently. Thank you for getting me home. She scrambled back through the hatch to where Marcus and Eli waited anxiously. Got it, she reported, showing them the drive and the communications array. Incoming, Eli suddenly hissed, pointing to the sky. Vrex shuttle, 2 o'clock. Sarah looked up to see a sleek black craft descending rapidly toward their position. It It was unlike any aircraft she had ever seen, seemingly flowing through the air rather than flying through it. "Run," Marcus ordered, grabbing Sarah's arm. "Back to the trees." They sprinted for the tree line as the Vrex shuttle settled over the clearing. A beam of purple energy lanced down, slicing through the Pathfinder's hull like it was paper. Sarah felt a pang as her ship, her home for 3 weeks that had become a time capsule from a lost era, was systematically cut apart. They reached the forest just as figures began to emerge from the shuttle. Sarah caught her first glimpse of the Vrex, tall, chitinous beings that moved with unsettling grace on multiple limbs. Their upper bodies split into 3 distinct sections, each with its own pair of manipulator appendages, all coordinating with perfect synchronization. "Don't look at them too long," Marcus warned as they fled deeper into the woods. "They can sense observation." They ran until their lungs burned, following a circuitous route designed to throw off pursuit. When they finally stopped to rest in a small cave hidden behind a waterfall, Sarah examined their precious cargo. The data drive was intact, and the communications array appeared undamaged. "Will it work?" Eli asked, gesturing to the array. Sarah shook her head. "Not on its own. It needs power and an amplifier if we want to reach orbit, let alone Mars. Eleanor can help with that," Marcus said. "She was working on a communications system before you arrived. Something to try to contact other resistance cells. Even if we get it working," Sarah said, "there's no guarantee anyone will hear us, or that there's even anyone to hear us." "It's called faith, Commander," Marcus replied with a grim smile. "Something humans have gotten pretty good at over the last 8 years. Back at the resistance bunker, Eleanor examined the communications array, professional interest. "Remarkable," she murmured. "The basic principles are similar to what we have been working on, but the miniaturization is beyond anything we had achieved. Can you make it work?" Sarah asked. "With time and parts, yes." Eleanor gestured to a workbench covered in salvaged electronics. "I have been building a transmitter powerful enough to punch through the Vrex communication dampening field. With your array's focusing capabilities, we might actually be able to reach orbit, maybe beyond." "And the data?" Eli asked, indicating the drive Sarah had retrieved. Eleanor connected it to a ruggedized laptop. "Let's see what we have got." The screen filled with scrolling information, reams of data about the wormhole Sarah had encountered. Gravitational readings, radiation signatures, spatial coordinates, all meticulously recorded by the Pathfinder sensors. "This is incredible," Eleanor breathed. "Some of this confirms theories we developed after studying Vrex technology." "What theories?" Sarah asked. "That wormholes leave a kind of echo," Eleanor explained. "A quantum signature that persists even after they close. If you know what to look for, you can potentially reopen them." "Are you saying we could reopen the wormhole I fell through?" Sarah asked. Hope rising within her, Eleanor's expression turned cautious. "Theoretically? Maybe. With Vrex technology, certainly. But with what we have here," she shook her head, "it would be like trying to build a nuclear reactor out of spare car parts." "But the Mars colony might have better resources," Eli suggested. "If it exists," Marcus reminded them. He had been silent until now, watching from the doorway. "And if they have been continuing the research." "There's only one way to find out," Sarah said firmly. "We need to get that transmitter working." Over the next 3 days, Sarah worked alongside Eleanor to integrate the Pathfinder's communications array with the Resistance's makeshift transmitter. It was delicate work, requiring improvisation and engineering creativity that pushed both women to their limits. Meanwhile, Marcus and his team continued their regular resistance activities, sabotaging Vrex supply lines, gathering intelligence, and occasionally rescuing humans from processing transports. That on the evening of the 3rd day, Eleanor stepped back from the completed transmitter with a satisfied nod. "It's ready, or as ready as it's going to be." The device was an ungainly hybrid of NASA technology and salvage electronics, but to Sarah, it was beautiful. "How much power will it need?" "More than we can safely draw from the grid without alerting the Vrex," Eleanor admitted. "We will need to tap into one of their power relays directly. It will be a one-shot deal. They will detect the power drain immediately. So we transmit once, then bug out," Marcus concluded. "Where's the nearest relay?" "There's one about 3 miles from here," Eli said. "It powers one of their smaller outposts. I have been monitoring their patrol patterns. There's a 5-minute window every night when the guards rotate." "What exactly are we going to transmit?" Marcus asked, turning to Sarah. Sarah had been considering this question carefully. A data packet containing the wormhole information, along with our coordinates and a message explaining who I am and what happened. If there is a Mars colony, and if they have been continuing the research, they will know what to do with it. And if there isn't, Marcus pressed. Sarah met his gaze steadily. Then at least we tried. The plan came together quickly. The next night, they would move the transmitter to a position near the Vrex power relay. Eli would tap into the relay during the guard rotation, giving them just enough time to transmit their message before the Vrex detected the power drain. Then they would retreat to a secondary bunker that Marcus had prepared as a fallback position. As the others made their preparations, Sarah found herself standing outside the bunker, looking up at the night sky. The stars were the same as she remembered, but knowing what had happened in the intervening years made them seem colder, more distant. "Penny for your thoughts," Eleanor said, joining her. "I was just thinking about time," Sarah replied. "How strange it is to have missed 10 years. To everyone I knew, I just disappeared. Time travel will do that to you," Eleanor said with a small smile. "Was there a search?" Sarah asked. "For the Pathfinder, I mean." Eleanor nodded. "A massive one. It was all over the news for weeks. NASA theorized that the wormhole had either destroyed your ship or transported it beyond our solar system. They continued sending signals toward where the wormhole had been, hoping you might respond. And then the Vrex came. And then the Vrex came," Eleanor echoed softly. By then, wormhole research had become a major focus. The discovery of your wormhole accelerated everything. Scientists were trying to understand how it had formed naturally, hoping to replicate the conditions artificially. And they succeeded, Sarah said bitterly. "Too well," Eleanor agreed. The first artificial wormhole opened exactly where they expected. What they didn't expect was what came through it. They were silent for a moment, contemplating the cosmic irony. Sarah's discovery had inadvertently paved the way for Earth's downfall. "If this works," Sarah said finally, "if we contact Mars and they have a way to use this information against the Vrex, that's a lot of ifs," Eleanor cautioned. "But it would mean my mission wasn't for nothing," Sarah insisted. "That something good could come from it after all." Eleanor placed a hand on her shoulder. "Whatever happens tomorrow, Commander, you have given us something we haven't had in a long time." "What's that?" "Hope," Eleanor said simply. "And sometimes that's enough to change everything." The Vrex power relay was a sleek black obelisk rising from the forest floor, connected to the main grid by glowing purple conduits that pulsed with energy. The resistance team approached under cover of darkness, carrying the makeshift transmitter in parts to be assembled on site. "Guards change in 7 minutes," Eli whispered, checking his watch. "We need to be in position by then." They moved quickly and silently, years of evading Vrex patrols evident in their practiced movements. Sarah followed their lead, acutely aware that her decade-old military training was no match for their hard-won experience. As they reached the edge of the clearing surrounding the relay, Marcus held up a hand to halt them. "Drone," he mouthed, pointing upward. Sure enough, a Vrex surveillance drone hovered above the relay, its scanning arrays sweeping methodically across the area. They froze, barely breathing, until it completed its programmed path and moved away. "Now," Marcus ordered. They rushed forward, keeping to the shadows. Eleanor and Sarah immediately began assembling the transmitter while Marcus and Eli prepared to tap into the relay. The air hummed with the energy flowing through the alien structure, raising the hair on Sarah's arms. "Ready," Eleanor announced as they connected the final components. Eli nodded. "Guards are changing." Now, Marcus attached power coupling to a specific point on the relay where the outer casing was slightly discolored, the result of previous resistance reconnaissance. "On my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark." Eli threw the switch. Power surged through the coupling into their transmitter. The device hummed to life, its jury-rigged components glowing with the strain of channeling so much energy. "Transmitting," Eleanor called, initiating the sequence they had programmed. The data packet beamed outward, carrying Sarah's wormhole data, their coordinates, and a message of desperate hope toward the sky. The transmitter's dish, salvaged from an old satellite TV antenna, swiveled automatically to target Mars' current position. 30 seconds, Marcus warned. "That's all we can risk." Sarah watched the progress bar on the makeshift console. The transmission was massive, gigabytes of complex data compressed as tightly as possible. It's not going to be enough time, she realized with growing dread. We need another minute at least, Eleanor confirmed, her face grim. You will get it, Marcus decided, drawing his weapon. I will draw them off when they come. The rest of you, finish the transmission, then fall back to the secondary location. Marcus, no, Eleanor began. Non-negotiable, Doc, he cut her off. This is too important. A warning light flashed on the relay, followed by an alarm that pulsed through the structure. They have detected the power drain, Eli reported. Transmission at 67%, Eleanor called. Sarah's mind raced. There had to be another way. Her eyes fell on the power coupling, then to the relay itself. An idea formed, desperate, possibly suicidal, but with a chance of success. I can boost the power, she announced. Get the transmission done in seconds instead of minutes. How? Marcus demanded. By overloading the relay, Sarah explained quickly. It will cause a surge through our transmitter, enough to send everything at once. It will also alert every Vrex within 50 miles, Marcus objected. They are already alerted, Sarah countered. In this way, none of us has to stay behind. Eleanor shook her head. The surge would fry the transmitter instantly. You'd have to manually maintain the connection during the overload. I know, Sarah said quietly. Understanding dawned on Marcus' face. You'd never survive that kind of power surge. Probably not, Sarah agreed. But the transmission would complete. No, Eleanor said firmly. We will find another way. There is no other way, Sarah insisted. And this is my responsibility. My mission led to this, to the Vrex finding Earth. I need to make it right. A distant whine cut through the night air, Vrex shuttles approaching. They had minutes at most. Transmission at 71%, Eli reported tensely. Sarah looked at each of them in turn. I made a promise before I left that I would come back. And I did. Now I need to make sure there's an Earth for my daughter to live in, whether I'm here to see it or not. Marcus held her gaze for a long moment, then nodded once. What do you need us to do? Get clear, Sarah instructed. As soon as you see the surge, run. Don't look back. Eleanor gripped Sarah's arm. The data has to reach orbit intact. The connection needs to be maintained for at least 3 seconds after the surge begins. 3 seconds, Sarah repeated. I can do that. The sounds of approaching Vrex grew louder. Marcus checked his weapon. We will give you as much time as we can. Sarah took a deep breath. Thank you, all of you. As the others melted back into the forest, taking up defensive positions, Sarah examined the relay. The Vrex technology was alien, but the principles of power distribution were universal. She identified what appeared to be a flow regulator, the component that prevented exactly the kind of overload she intended to create. Transmission at 82%. Eli called from the trees. The first Vrex drone appeared at the edge of the clearing, its scanning beams cutting through the darkness. A shot from Marcus' position took it down, but more would follow. Sarah placed her hands on the relay, feeling the energy thrumming beneath its smooth surface. The Pathfinder's crash had brought her here, to this moment. Perhaps this had been her destiny all along. Not to disappear into a wormhole, but to return at exactly the right time to make a difference. For Emma, she whispered. Then, with a swift, decisive movement, she ripped the flow regulator free. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. Energy surged through the relay, the conduits glowing white-hot with uncontrolled power. Sarah gripped the coupling connecting their transmitter, manually maintaining the circuit as electricity coursed through her body. Pain unlike anything she had ever experienced engulfed her, but she held on 0.1 second. Through eyes blurred with agony, she saw the transmission rate spike dramatically. The progress bar leapt forward 0.2 seconds. The clearing blazed with light as the relay began to destabilize. In the distance, Sarah thought she could see Vrex warriors emerging from their shuttle, moving with inhuman speed toward the commotion. 0.3 seconds. Transmission complete. Eleanor's voice, distant and distorted through the roaring in Sarah's ears. Sarah smiled through the pain. She had kept her promise after all. She had come back, and she had made a difference. As consciousness began to fade, she looked up at the stars one last time. Somewhere up there, her message was racing toward Mars, carrying hope for humanity's future. The relay exploded in a blinding flash of purple-white energy. The Vrex Imperium flagship hung in orbit above Earth, its massive bulk eclipsing the sun from the perspective of those below. Within its command center, the Vrex High Commander received troubling reports from outposts across the planet. Simultaneous attacks on 17 processing centers, the intelligence cast representative reported. Human resistance forces equipped with weapons that can penetrate our shields. Impossible, the High Commander chittered. Their technology is primitive. The weapons appear to be our own design, the representative admitted reluctantly.